Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to try something new, grid journaling. It comes from kellywinstudios.com. I'll put a link in the description box. So I'm going to do my grid journaling on my 9x12 Canson Mixed Media art journal page. I put a coat of gesso on that just because that's my usual process. Now, when you do grid journaling, you can trace whatever size or shape that you want. Kelly Wynn often does 2-inch squares. These are bigger post-it notes. You can trace around coasters. You can make round shapes. Today, I'm going to do triangular shapes because, well, I haven't seen anybody do it, and I've got to put my little spin on this. So I cut these shapes, and I made templates, and 6 of them are going to go on here. I didn't want to go too small because I don't like working terribly small, so I thought this would be perfect. Now, the purpose of grid journaling is to explore, to play, to expand your horizons, to try things out and use things that you have. Remember that, because I'm going to ask you whether I did successfully do grid journaling or did I fail at it. So I'm tracing these with my Stabilo all pencil. Now comes the fun part, the playing part. Now, one of the things that she said is to use the things that you have, and recently, as I cleaned my studio, I have all my use it and lose it. I've got napkins and tissues and all sorts of collage fodder. So I'm planning on using some of that in this. It's a great place to use all those little bits and bobs. I have all this book paper, dictionary paper, and again, I don't use it a lot. So I'm just gluing this down with my fluid matte medium. And as I'm doing that, of course, every time I touch the Stabilo all pencil, it activates and is making these smudges, which is driving me crazy. One of the things that I wanted to use was some atlas paper. I like the subdued colors of it, the texture of the paper. Again, I have it in my stash, so I wanted to use it. So this is a perfect place to see it. Now, whatever you're putting on these first layers, just like an art journal page, may or may not show up at the end. The collage papers, at a minimum, are going to add texture to your little composition. And you have to think of each of these triangular shapes as a composition in itself, but you're also looking at it as a composition as a whole. You want the whole page to look together. These are words that I had printed out on tissue paper and it jammed in the printer, but can't throw it out. So I'm just ripping that up and I'm putting those words, gluing those down right here. And right now this is becoming a very neutral, subdued page or grid journal. And if you know me, you know that's really not me. Now, when you try something new, expect to feel discomfort. And I was feeling very uncomfortable in this process. So I wasn't happy with how the Stabilo was activating, and I'm going, oh, as I glue on and do other things, this is going to continue to happen. So I decided to activate it with the fluid matte medium. And what that did is not only activated it, which gave me a nice border, but it also sealed it. I've never done that before. And so in the process of this grid journaling, I discovered something new, and I'm passing that along to you. In the future, I will just trace with a pencil, and I will not, or something permanent, I'm not going to use the Stabilo there because, again, not my comfort zone. So one of the items that I found recently was some sticker washi tape that I had made. I have, when I print out sentiments on sticker paper, I end up with these little side pieces that I collect. I put paint on them and stamped on them, and then I stored them and I haven't used them. So today I grabbed out some and I'm just ripping them up and putting them down, which is great because I don't have to mess with any kind of adhesive. So I decided here to spend a little time and sort by colors and get some kind of direction. Because whenever you do a grid journaling page, you can choose, I'm going to do all collage, or I'm going to try to use these 3 colors. So I needed some direction in here. And I'm going very much with that coral and Naples yellow oxide color. Well, that's what it looks like I'm going to do. If you saw this sneak peek of the finished product, you'll know that that changes. Now what you want to do is do something different in each of the grids. So whatever shape it is, it doesn't matter. You want to set up a different composition, put things in a different place, with the idea being that maybe you're going to end up with one of the compositions that's you're going to be able to use on a full-size art journal page or a full-size canvas. It's just exploring the possibilities without necessarily worrying about the finished project, which I struggle with. I struggle with perpetual. I want it to look pretty. Any of you suffer from the same thing? So I admit at the end of this, I was feeling like I had failed at this, and I rewatched some of Kelly's videos. And I realized that really I didn't. It was my own insecurities, my own discomfort. Now I want to do some stamping on these shapes, and I like stamping where it goes off the composition, off the page, off the canvas. So I made a template, and I'm going to stamp with that so I don't get it on the white part. And this worked really, really well. So I'm using different stamps from my DIY stamps that I made out of foam stamps, and I'll link to that video. And again, each one, so now we have the same color, but each one's going to have different marks. Some I'm going to like better than others, and that will direct maybe a future project. I am just putting on black acrylic paint with a makeup sponge onto my foam stamps and stamping. The black is adding much needed contrast. And quite honestly, I could say this was done. In fact, there's many times in this process where it could have been done, but I kept going. I was having fun in my studio and I was exploring. Now I decided I wanted to add some modeling paste on this. This isn't something I saw Kelly doing, but it is part of what I do. I like having that texture, so I grabbed this fan flower stencil and TCW modeling paste. And again, I'm using my little window so I don't get the modeling paste elsewhere. And I'm just adding some modeling paste to each of the triangular shapes. That kind of pushes back what's behind it, has turned it white at this point in time, and added some painting, added texture, and added some patterning as well. I think the thing with grid journaling or any of these things that come out, take what someone is giving you and make it your own. You still need to do you. Be open to trying something new. Expect to feel uncomfortable doing it. I did. But then make it your own. There really are no rules. Again, I could have stopped here, right? But I didn't. Now I'm adding some gesso. This is further knocking back some of it, adding some white space onto the compositions. Now I wanted to colorize it. And I'm going back to the coral color from the beginning and the Naples yellow, and I'm adding acrylic paint. I'm getting it into where the modeling paste is, and FYI, that modeling paste, I took time to completely dry it before I moved on. And here I'm just adding color. And I've chosen to use my acrylic paints, but I could have used 8/10 blocks. You could use watercolors. And you can see right now, as I'm looking back on this, everyone is slightly different. Some has more pink, some has more yellow, more texture. And when you're looking at this, you can say, which one do I like? And maybe that will inspire a future project. So I could have stopped here. Looking back at Kelly's, when she demonstrates some of her pages, this would have been an acceptable end. But I didn't. I decided I wanted to add another color, so I grabbed some turquoise metallic, and I'm using this stencil and adding some marks in the turquoise color. I'm thinking, I think that will look good with this. So either you're applying what you know, I know this is going to look good, so my instincts tell me to do this, or I'm going to experiment with this. I grabbed some caps from my mark making tools, and I'm just stamping with the acrylic paint some more circles. I think one of the things that I suffered from in doing this was that because I had cleaned my studio and I was so aware of all these products and supplies that I wanted to use that I haven't been using, I tried to use too many on here. Maybe I would have been better off had I edited limited it a little bit. But see, when I go on and try grid journaling again, I will apply what I've learned from this process. And I would never have known this is what I needed to do unless you go through it. You've got to actually walk the walk, go do it, and then learn. Now I'm grabbing Prussian blue and I'm adding some blue in there. And it's not really doing anything, really adding to it. But I tried it, I learned it, I would have not do it next time. At this point, I'm evaluating it and I'm going, oh, I lost too much white space. I wanted to incorporate, bring back the white space. So I'm taking some white acrylic paint and I'm putting it in a couple of them where the modeling paste was and trying to get drippage going. I always like drippage when other people do it. I don't think I've ever successfully used it. I'm thinking I'm done And so I'm just edging each of the compositions. This is what I do on my art journal pages, on my canvases, and so this seemed very natural part. I'm just edging it with black acrylic paint. This frames it, allows me to see the composition as it is. Helps me see where I would take it next. Then I decide to grab my distress crayons. I grab a burgundy, I grab some blues, and I'm rubbing them on. If it's a color I don't like, I'm grabbing a baby wipe and wiping it back. I'm liking the smudgeability of these distress crayons. They kind of give this soft color. And as you're going to see, as I'm doing this, I'm dramatically changing the tone of my grids. It's becoming more rich, and I'm rather enjoying it, especially the addition of this blue here. So even though it seems at various places I had something perfectly acceptable, I could have left it. Because I pushed it, I ended up where I ended up. Anybody else catch that all that white space that I kept trying to bring back is gone? I also learned that I need to swatch out my distress crayons so I know exactly what tone they are to make better decisions when I use them. So as I look at it, I'm thinking, I really like that blue, so I'm adding a little bit more blue on each one. Blue, that blue, and the burgundy, and the golden color really work together. And why wouldn't they? Basically, it's the primary colors, a red, yellow, and a blue. But more of a jewel tone. I grab my Posca pen and I'm sketchily outlining it. Kind of messy. Not trying to be perfect. Going around once, twice, 3 times. Now, this is the end of the grid journaling part. But in my brain, I need it to be a completed page. So I'm going to turn this grid journaling, which it still is, into an art journal page. I have these flowers that was a printable from supercoloring.com. They were from a project that I just finished. I had some excess cut out sitting on my desk. So I glued those on, grabbed some sentiments that were white on black and added those in between. So I'm turning the grid journaling into an art journal page. Will I do that every time I do grid journaling? Maybe. I was going to keep the flowers white, but then I decided I'm just going to give them a coat of gesso and I'm going to colorize them. So I'm giving it 1, 2, 3, and this is giving it a very painterly effect. It looks like you've painted them on, not just glued a copy paper down, which is what they're printed on. Then I grab the Naples yellow and I'm giving that a light wash. And I chose the Naples yellow because it has that golden color a little bit in each of the grids. I'm mixing the Naples yellow with Hooker's green to color the leaves. And then I come back and I shade with yellow oxide just to bring out the petals of the flowers. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment. Both of those things tell YouTube that you value my channel and it gets played more, and it really, really helps me out. Using my Stabilo L pencil to make some sketchy lines on here. It won't reactivate because I'm done. Nothing else will be added. So now's a good time to use the Stabilo. I smudge it in a few places. Remove the tape. And I'm just going to do a little bit of a doodle border. Just because I've now turned this grid journaling into a full-on art journal page. Love the jewel tones in this. And if one of the goals was to use my supplies, I have used several of my use it or lose it supplies, so I'm just crossing off that. You can get this free digital download from NINNYSNAPKINS.com. I'll put a link in the description box. And there's the finished page. I'm giving it a thumbs up. But was it grid journaling? Yes or no? Answer the question in the comment section below. Here are close-ups of the finished page. I hope you love it. Until next time, go get creative.